Okay, then let's get slowly started. So welcome everyone to today's working group meeting. We do not have really much on the agenda. So first, share now. Yeah, okay. So first, the noble stem cell validation. So we got the noble validation green for the first time. It was, however, run with a development version of the Garden Run C release. So Dimitar built and uploaded this. This fixed the problem with the memory reporting issue for applications. Let me just find the issue here, noble stem cell. And we had, oh, it's already closed.
It's
So this,
already closed, yes.
okay, perfect. Yeah. So this was fixed now. So with that, the stem cell validation is green. We, however, do not have an official new Garden Run C release. The last one is from February or so, because they have problems with their release pipeline. So it will, they also have issues with Noble validation on their side. So we have to wait for them to cut a new release, but then the pipeline is really green without any dev releases. Okay, so that looks good. Any questions to Noble? Okay, if not, then Carson, you have been absent for a few days and you were missed. In the Cloud Foundry acceptance tests, there was a longer, there was a pull request open for a longer time with the file-based service binding tests for Windows. But Konstantin Lapkov has made all the requested changes from your side and also from my side. And yeah, okay then. So we merged this pull request in the meantime because we needed the refactoring part. And right now, our new team colleague Serda and me are working on the implementation for the updated service, file-based service binding RFC. So we have two modes. One is the Kubernetes mode, and another one is the VCAP file-based service mode. So we are finishing this in accordance to the RFC, and then this feature is ready for shipment. Yeah, so I hope we can include this in the next CF deployment release, and then we have finally file-based service bindings. Okay, then Oliver proposed to add the IPv6 egress test to the agenda. So
Yeah,
yeah,
maybe we start as Alex from
or
our
Alex, if
side,
you, yeah,
from SAP side, who is overall driving the IPv6 topic in the CF area. Let's give him maybe yeah, a starting point to introduce himself and talk a little bit what we
Sure.
want to reach, and
Yep.
then we can step over to the second part, maybe regarding the test setup proposal.
Yeah. Okay. So you've maybe seen that there's an RFC to add IPv6 support to Cloud Foundry. Mostly egress is in the RFC. Ingress is more or less a no-op, CF-wise. And this involves quite a few changes in Bosch, in Diego, for actually deploying a landscape with that. But then, of course, to run acceptance tests, we'd also need changes in the Bosch bootloader to set up environments that have enough infrastructure set up on AWS, for example, to have IPv6 ranges assigned to the networks, which we can then use to give to Bosch to then delegate to VMs and so on, and for Diego to actually delegate to the containers. So this is something that should be set up, and from what I understood, CF deployment should also so that there should be an ops file that enables IPv6 egress and some tests that actually test it. For that, we need the environment, but then also some test apps, for example, that do some calls out to well-known IPv6 endpoints. There's various testing sites for IPv6 where you then, for example, get your IPv6 address that you use for actually making the call, the client IP. And that can be used to verify that stuff actually works. This will also test DNS resolution for Quad A records and so on. And the main question here, where I have no strong opinions and would need your feedback, would be how can we set up a test pipeline for this? Do we extend an existing one that maybe is one of the jobs is not green for a while until we actually have the stuff running? Or can we set up a new, entirely new pipeline that is IPv6 enabled, and then eventually, once this becomes a mainstream feature, merge them back into a single pipeline or something like that?
Yes. So,
Yeah, Jochen, if you want, I can also then
yeah, if you already have a good idea,
provide
yeah, please go ahead, Oliver.
some ideas.
Some
As
ideas, yeah.
as a first of all, the thing is the Bosch bootloader is not enhanced so far for IPv6.
Yeah.
So there must be the Terraform templates enhanced and so on and so forth. And the idea is that the Bosch bootloader should be enhanced to support a dual stack, also means IPv4 and IPv6. Also neither, it's not only IPv4 or IPv6, but having the dual stack enhanced. Now, this is a precondition. And one proposal where we could start in CF deployment, as this needs some time, no? And as Alex mentioned, also the implementation, the runtime and router and other components still has to be done. But maybe to parallelize the work and not to wait completely until everything is ready, there might be an option that we could start in CF deployment a little bit earlier with a test infrastructure, and the idea is to keep it separated from the existing one to not harm and have any regressions. Also it's clear that the normal CF updates and releases must work as usual. And one options that we can do is that we set up a new bubble environment with the current Bosch bootloader, also with a job that runs then the smoke and cuts tests. Set this up, and then we can think about the next step, that we have some test apps that are doing an egress call, an IPv6 egress call. And I think, as is, everything is not final, no, but I think for each of the build packs we need one app, because we have here different kind of technology stacks, as a Node, Python, and all that stuff, Java. As one app per stack, that we can extend our cuts test suite. This is one thing. And then I think this is already a lot of work to do and can be prepared. And then if the stack is ready for IPv6, and especially for us interesting when the Bosch bootloader is enhanced with IPv6 as dual stack, then we can regrade this bubble env as dual stack, and still have then the let's say this bubble env and the test pipeline as a separate point. No? And with that, we can also, at the early stage, provide, let's say a test job and a validation pipeline for sure. If then the test runs, maybe our test applications are doing egress calls, this will fail at the beginning, but it will not harm the existing test suite that we have, because it's separately. And then it will take, I would say, as usual, some time until everything works. No? And if then finally the complete stack is supporting IPv6, maybe then at a later point in time we can think about if we regrade the existing bubble env as dual stack bubble env, but this is a separate point now. Also, in the first round, it should be completely separated. Yeah. It's is this clear the idea?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe also also to as I think Jochen, yeah.
Yeah,
Also to
perfect clear. I
Carsten,
mean,
maybe,
same
yeah.
as for the noble stem cell, we create a new pipeline and let
Mm,
it run, and it will be read.
mm,
Okay,
mm,
one minor thing, we should
mm,
check the available budget because this will require a few additional resources and slightly increased
mm,
costs. So we should clarify this beforehand with our sponsors. And well, for the foreseeable future, I would not expect too many activities in Bosch bootloader, and I guess the change could really, depending if it's compatible or not, and so on, and it could really
mm,
become quite large. So no
mm,
idea when we will get this pipeline green, but
mm,
from the approach would be okay.
mm. I mean, the other thing is that we completely wait until the Bosch bootloader is enhanced and then start
Yeah,
afterwards. No, this could be the other option. Normally,
yeah,
this is the way how it should go. No, but
yeah,
if
yeah.
we maybe start a little bit
This,
earlier, build up the
yeah,
knowledge, also uh,
So
yeah.
at the
set up.
same time,
Yeah.
I'm working
Mm,
on getting commitment from some other teams at SAP to maybe contribute some things to the Bosch bootloader.
Okay.
I don't have commitment yet, but that would be actually the ideal solution because we have our people that did this for SAP already. It's more the question whether they are, we can task them at this time to do this
Yeah,
already or not.
yeah.
And if yes, then it could actually be sooner than later that we have an updated Bosch bootloader or
Okay.
at
Yeah.
least the Terraform files. And I'm guessing then we might need some feature flag thing, whatever, that it either uses the one set of resources or another, or something like that, where you can opt into deploying with IPv6 because we don't want to break anything existing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the big question. I think it should be possible to integrate IPv6 into the Bosch bootloader setup in a compatible way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've read a little bit through the AWS documentation. You
Yeah.
need a new egress, whatever, not
Yeah.
NAT gateway, but how is it called?
Egress only internet gateway.
Right, exactly this. Egress only. The VPC can also support V4 and V6 at the same
Yeah.
time.
You can also migrate them on the fly.
That is all fine.
Yeah.
The tricky
Mm-hmm.
thing is the load balancers. Yeah, we're still using the old load balancer type on AWS, which does not support V6. So we would have to replace this with newer application and network load balancer types, and here it gets a bit tricky.
Okay.
Yeah, so you could maybe deploy the old and new load balancers in parallel. Could work. And
Mm-hmm.
then later disable the old one. But this is I think the tricky part. Yeah.
Okay. And you would want, obviously, you would want to retain the existing config that it is
Well,
for.
if a compatible integration is possible, that would of course be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then people just update to the latest bubble release. That's what
Mm-hmm.
we do for our test environments.
Yeah.
Also, the copy pipelines do the same. And then and then you are without any breaking changes IPv6 enabled and
Mm-hmm.
can start testing IPv6 stuff.
Mm-hmm. And
But it could
downtime is
be,
okay, right? As in, if
well, yes.
while you're moving over from one to the other,
Where would the downtime occur?
yeah, on the load balancer, I think. If you rip out the old one and you put a new one,
If you rip it out, definitely, then you would
that
have a
yes,
downtime, certainly.
yeah,
If you, I don't know, add new load balancers only for V6, keep the
yeah,
old ones, it could be a smoother transition.
right.
Don't know if it's possible.
Just the main point from experience is migrating these things without any perceivable downtime is a lot harder than with some downtime,
Yeah,
which is maybe a minute or two,
sure. Yeah, yeah.
and it's maybe not worth the effort for a test environment. So in the end, after the
yeah,
migration, it should
I
still
mean, Bosch
work.
bootloader is also, I guess it is also used for productive environments, yeah.
Oh, I see.
I mean, it's
Is
the
it?
community recommended approach to set up your base infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah. But I can't
Okay.
tell.
That's
Yeah.
important to know. Thank you.
Yeah. This is yeah.
One cost saving idea if we wanted to have a new infrastructure environment
Yeah.
would be that we could, and I don't know if this is possible, but theoretically a Bosch Lite would save a lot of costs on a new infrastructure environment if we just want to test, like get a
Oh,
green red on this feature. I don't know if
yes.
that would bring all the IPv6 features that you want to test, but if it's more about the load balancer and just like one VM, then a Bosch Lite would be fine, and you can run cats against it.
Okay, this could be an idea, but I must admit I haven't used Bosch Lite in a while, and I'm sure it would also require a lot of changes to be made to make this IPv6 enabled.
Probably
Um, but yes,
just an idea. No,
it could be a solution. Yeah, yeah. So I
Mm.
mean, yeah, it's not
I
probably not too expensive, the new environment.
mm,
We should just make sure that when it fails, the CF deployment is destroyed, and here it hangs around forever, the CF deployment until, because this job is almost never executed. Yeah.
mm.
Yes.
I think the question would be anyhow if this new environment somehow separately is temporary, no? Means until everything
Mm-hmm.
works. And if we have reached at a certain time that everything works with IPv6 and the dual stack, I think then could be the next step that we think about the existing environments if we update them to become from IPv4 only to IPv6. Also not sure, this must be then technically analyzed if this is possible at all.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can go in that direction, then we would have anyhow this separate IPv6 environment, this new one that we create for a certain time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Also, yeah, do you think that this is possible technically, or needs most likely more research now and in-depth technical analysis?
You mean separate?
I, as the thing is now we create a new bubble env, also for
Mm-hmm.
IPv6 dual stack testing, and
Mm-hmm.
then it will take for sure several months until everything will works. But
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point in time, we will hopefully have that everything works. And if this time is reached, then we might can think that we can delete this additional IPv6 or dual stack pipeline, this test pipeline alone, that we delete this and upgrade the existing bubble environments that we have now for from scratch
Yes.
test,
Yes.
upgrade test, and
Yes.
so on. Upgrade them to the dual stack
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
as dual stack, and then we could delete this temporary, let's say, additional.
Yes, I mean,
Pipeline.
when
Yeah.
the validation is
Mm,
completely successful, we can delete the additional pipeline and, yeah,
mm.
integrate it into the
Yeah.
experimental environment first, and then
No.
successively into all other environments. Yes, this is
Mm,
the
mm,
usual process. We will do the
mm,
same for
mm,
Noble. Yeah, when that is successful
mm,
and GA, we will also use it in the main validation scenarios and have one regression pipeline for the old setup, and then eventually delete the additional
mm.
pipeline again. Yeah.
No.
One question, why would you want to test all relevant build packs? I mean,
Yeah, the question is if a test, for example, with one node app, an external egress call is sufficient to have really the right test coverage and can ensure that you can say it works also with Python or other technology
From
stacks. Maybe
experience,
that
there were bugs in
uh, the-
Node.js that did DNS resolution a bit too aggressive.
DNS
Um,
resolution is, yeah,
mm,
okay. This
also,
and
can be tricky, yeah.
I think there were also some issues with having v6 completely disabled, you're trying to open a v6 listener on an environment where v6 is completely disabled, or the other way around. There were some issues. I don't quite remember what it was, but our IPv6 main guy at SAP had some issues with Node for sure, and making test apps for Go, Python, Java, JavaScript, and Ruby will not take too much time.
Yeah, that's
especially
for sure,
considering that we have from our team, we have the routing sample apps where we provide some apps for H2, HTTP2. So extending those to also do some egress, or basically forking or copying them, and instead of doing HTTP2 responses, just doing some IPv6 requests and showing what the result is. It's pretty simple.
Would you expect actually changes in the build packs for a proper configuration, or is it then more an example app? And if you want to do IPv6, you
it maybe both. Ideally, only one. Ideally, it's only an example app. It might be that you might have recommendations for env variables that maybe configure some things to your liking. And if we really hit a bug somewhere, this might be something that needs to be changed. All of that said, IPv6 is not new. The language is all supported for quite a while. And I think the Node.js bug was somewhere in Node 14 or 16, and we're well above 20 now. So all of those things have shaken out in the meantime, I think. So I don't see huge risks there, but still better safe than sorry.
Okay. Yeah, now big question, who would be the main contributor for the new CATS tests? I mean, we can all hide this behind an include IPv6 flag to selectively enable the new test suite or not. I mean, Alex, would you have capacity to contribute tests? Or
I have a bit of capacity. I have very little knowledge about the CATS tests, but that can change. I mean, the test apps I can contribute. That's no problem at all. And I think with Oliver together, we could probably easily figure out how to include them.
Yeah, I think Jochens and my team, I think we will work on the bubble environment and the separate one, the Concurse shop. And then if this basic setup is done, and when it goes into creating then the new apps, doing the egress call, I think then Alex, we have to think and work together. So.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Good. Okay. Yeah, so the effort for CATS should be moderate, I would say, and then let's hope that someone can make progress on the Bosch bootloader, because this is the critical part. Yes.
I mean, the interesting part is maybe if we could reuse one of the existing apps that we have, or if we should just have separate apps now just for IPv6 only.
You could certainly reuse existing apps. There are test apps which can be programmed from the outside to do various things like reading env variables and also sending network calls. That's probably something that can be reused. If not, the new simple app is also rather easy.
I think it might be useful to exercise build packs though. So not have some app that does a lot of things, but really just how a regular developer would go about it. Do a minimal, with that also an example app to some degree. And with that, validate that as well.
Minimal app is just doing an egress call.
Yeah,
that's it.
Can also do that. So, yes, no problem.
Yeah. The interesting part is then what should we call? Also, what is the target address? As I think in the community.
That's kind of so. There is plenty of IPv6 test sites. IP EFI, I think, one of them. IPv4, IP
Okay,
whatever.
no, good.
So there's plenty of endpoints that are constantly available and intended for testing with IPv6.
Mhm.
There's also some stuff from Cloudflare and so on.
Mm.
Yeah.
As long as you're
So,
in the SAP VPN, you will not have IPv6, unfortunately,
Yeah, okay.
for
Yeah.
now.
Okay, so there
It
are
will also
test
change
pages
soon.
available. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, we're not the only one who need to test this. So, okay, good.
do we also already have in the community the support for ingress calls? Also that app can be called from the outside?
No, but that would probably,
Uh,
this is where the load balancer comes in, really. You don't need the load
Yeah,
balancer for
exactly.
egress, actually.
Exactly. It's for the ingress. No,
Yeah,
I'm
for
just thinking
ingress.
about having tests where a test app that could be called ingress via IPv6 is then doing the egress call to the same app,
Yeah,
not
that you could have a
expose
loop
another.
kind of, yes, that could
Yeah,
be a
as
self-contained scenario, yeah.
yeah, just
That's
as
actually
an
a good point
idea.
with that the load balancers in the bubble environment and the migration there are actually also secondary then.
Mm.
So if we were to focus on getting an egress test out as the very first thing, we could do that and then extend to the load balancers and ingress.
Okay.
But this question goes maybe to Jochen. Also on SAP side, we already support ingress calls with IPv6, but do we have this also
That's
in
not for me. That is for Alex.
That's
That is
that's
the
for me.
routing team.
Yeah, that's
okay.
the question for me. Yes.
Yeah.
We do. We have
Mhm.
all of the configuration that we need for the load balancer. We have some configuration for HA proxy. Because we're also using HA proxy, which in this setup, I think we wouldn't.
No, we don't have that in the community. There's no HA proxy. We only have Go router.
Okay.
And the one big-ish caveat for AWS here is that you can only have IPv4 or IPv6 in a target group, which means the load balancer will either talk v4 or v6 with your with the Go
Okay.
router. And with
So
that, it will not show the IP addresses, the client IP address of the origin for one or the other, depending on what it is that it's
okay.
talking to by default. Unless you use proxy protocol, which is where we use HA proxy, because that is the translation thing that takes the proxy protocol, handles that, and Go router doesn't need to care. And I think that Go router does not support proxy protocol at the moment.
Yeah.
So for the initial test, we could have the scenario that you just don't see the client's original IP address. The request would still go through. The response would still be there. But Go router doesn't log the IP address of the client correctly. It will log the internal address of the load balancer instead for one of the protocols, which I think is also, as intermediate step, something we could live with. And eventually, if this is something that the community wants, add proxy protocol support to Go router also, if that is needed. But that's a question for another working group.
This is more for another working group.
Exactly.
Yeah, so,
for my working group, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And it's also not a critical showstopper. It will still work.
Yeah.
It's just that the fidelity is not 100%, it's like 99.8% instead.
Yeah. Okay.
Quote unquote.
Yeah.
But still, what I not have understood is also egress. We have it on SAP side, is clear, but on the
Ingress.
communities, ingress. Ingress.
Yeah.
Yes. But the ingress on the community side, this is so far not there or not tested or
Because
somehow.
the ingress is fully handled via AWS infrastructure and HA proxy Bush release.
Okay.
And with that, the communication from HA proxy to Go router is purely IPv4.
Okay.
That should also change eventually, but for now it's IPv4.
Okay, good. Yeah, of course. And then in bootloader, we also need it need updated runtime Bosch runtime configs and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So then we can try to prepare some acceptance tests for PV6 egress as a first step, but I would expect, and yeah, set up an additional pipeline. If there are no budget restrictions, this could, so Oliver, would you want to set up the new pipeline?
So I plan it in as part of the backlog that we
Okay,
yeah, do this.
good. And the tests, it's still
So I can support a bit with the tests, but again, I don't have CAD's test writing or running experience or access, I guess.
yeah.
But I'm sure I can coordinate with whatever.
Yeah, with the
And his
tests
team.
we also support here. I will also plan this here.
Okay.
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 Good. This budget thing, who will tackle this? Who must be asked? Is this Clark or?
That's Chris Clark. Yeah, we should at
Chris,
least inform him that we need a few additional resources. There's also, I don't know, when the noble, when it's green, it should automatically delete the test deployment again. That it is also better than keeping it alive. So that should also reduce cost again. Yeah, so it should not be that critical. Yeah. Okay. Good. Anything more we can do on this topic now? Nope.
Currently not.
Good. Then do we have any other business?
Nope.
Nothing? Okay, then we are done for today.
Thank you very much.
All for participating.
Right.
And see you soon in 2 weeks.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon.